guys, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today's video I'm very excited about because I'm going to be chatting through my summer TBR. Listen, I'm a list maker, I'm a TBR maker, and the summertime just always has like a special feeling for me. Obviously, it will never touch fall, which does come right after summer. But I would also say summer always makes me reflect on like the feeling of summer vacation when I was a kid, even though I am an adult who doesn't have summer vacation at all anymore, but it just always makes me so excited to read and read very long books. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into my TBR. Starting first with my non-sci-fi fantasy picks for the month. The first set of books are all by the same author. That is Emily Henry. I am one in the mood to read some summertime romance and in general just kind of binge this super popular author. I've read Beach Read by Emily Henry a few years ago now, and I personally really enjoyed it, and it was so much fun to read during these summer months. All of her books are definitely summer leaning, at least I'm pretty sure, and I'm just kind of in the mood for some contemporary romance. Normally I read historical romance, but you know, it's always good to switch it up once in a while. I sort of just want to marathon all her releases this summer if I'm able. Of the ones that I own that I have not read yet, the first is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. This follows two best friends who have basically been taking a vacation together every year for the past 10 years. They've been with each other through so many different chapters of their life, and they've always kind of been the one that got away, I think, for the other person. And now I believe their vacations are about to come to an end, and I believe something perhaps might happen between these two characters. This is a story set both present day during this final trip, but I believe we also read in the past over the course of every single trip they took as kind of a unit together through time. Again, Emily Henry, she's great with banter, she's great with characters, and I appreciate that she balances romance with like real character explorations and like emotional depth to her stories too. They're fun and steamy, but I also feel like I get something out of them as well, which makes them so hard to put down. Next up is her newest release, which is A Funny Story, which I honestly just picked up and I think kind of inspired this readathon because the setup and synopsis of this is truly just too good. This is a fake dating, forced proximity style setup, and I love those tropes in a romance story every single time. And Daphne is engaged and she recently uprooted her entire life, moved back to her fiance's small town in like the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. She's a little more reserved, she's shy, she's not really someone who introduces a lot of people into her life, but she is excited to move here to kind of start fresh, and also because she got her dream job as a children's librarian. However, though, before the start of this novel, everything sort of turned upside down because her fiance actually left her for his childhood best friend, and now Daphne finds herself living with her new roommate Miles, who was that childhood best friend's ex-boyfriend. And so these two spited exes are now living together. They're going through all the emotional stages of grief after a breakup. From there, I believe we see them begin to form a friendship and begin a sort of fake dating scenario to get back at their respective exes. This sounds really fun, but I also feel like it's going to be emotional as well. And who doesn't love an Upper Peninsula summer read? It's a perfect setting. And the last Emily Henry book that I own that I plan to read is Happy Place, and I believe this one is more of an ensemble style story. Basically, we follow our main character Harriet, and Harriet has been going to this house in Maine with her closest friends for a very long time. They all met in college, they're BFFs, and she's also been going there with her boyfriend Wynn, also for a long time. However, though, Harriet is harboring a secret, and that is Wynn and her have broken up. They've been together for 8 years, and they're keeping their breakup a secret from their friends, but they plan to tell them at like this most recent vacation when they're all together. However, though, this gets much more complicated because this trip turns into a wedding. Wynn and Harriet are trying to pretend that they're still together. I believe this is full of angst and drama. I also appreciate that it's kind of centering a cast of characters set in Maine, which is personally one of my favorite places I've ever been. I'm so looking forward to picking this one up. And I do want to give a quick shout out to Book Lovers, which I did buy and it's on its way to me. I'm not totally sure the exact synopsis of this, but Book Lovers implies people who love books who perhaps fall in love, and I am interested in that. So yes, Emily Henry summer is upon us. I'm so looking forward to picking these books up and reading them all maybe at once, because normally when I start reading romance, I can't stop until I'm like kind of burned out, and then a year later I read a bunch of romance books again. Another non-science science fiction fantasy book that I want to read this summer is The Inheritance Game by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I'm looking forward to possibly reading this entire trilogy, another kind of marathon read, if you know what I mean. And this is a classic whodunit mystery YA novel. And there's something about YA thrillers in particular that I personally love. I feel like they kind of lean more campy. They're also generally not as scary, which I personally need because I'm a scaredy cat, but I just like love YA mysteries. And I feel like this is going to be a blast to read. It follows our main character Avery, and Avery has a plan. She is going to graduate high school, get a scholarship, and just get the heck out of Dodge. But her whole life is actually turned upside down when a billionaire leaves her virtually his entire fortune. She doesn't know why, but there is a catch, and that is Avery has to move into the family mansion and live amongst all the people he basically just disinherited, and also work to solve all of these different mysteries that are on the property. Things obviously get very complicated from there, but I love mysteries, I love games, I love a whodunit, and I also feel like the drama and angst between all of the family members is going to be amazing. I've heard such good things about this series from people who both read a lot of YA and who don't, so I really feel like I'm gonna love this. The next book that's on my list is The Vanished Birds by Simon Jimenez. It's honestly embarrassing that I've not picked this book up yet. It's been on so many different TBRs, and I know I'm going to love it. In fact, I have a strong feeling that this could possibly be one of my favorite books of the year. Simon Jimenez made my top books of last year's list. The Spear Cuts Through Water. I loved it so much. His writing style and just his stories are absolutely engrossing, and this one too just sounds like it's going to be truly amazing. And in this sci-fi story, we're following our main character Nia, and Nia's job sort of takes her through space and time, sort of throwing herself headfirst into work, in part because she's a bit of a workaholic, but also because as she progresses in her job, she knows she's leaving the ones she knows and loves further and further behind, literally through distance, but also with time. Nia's life, though, is turned upside down when she stumbles across a lost boy in the galaxy. The child does not speak, and its only form of communication is through music. Together, though, I think they begin to form a bond, a newfound family setting. I feel like this is going to be beautiful, gripping, emotional. Simon Jimenez's writing is also just stunning in itself. I need to read this book. Another book I need to get to is Certain Dark Things by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is one of my last remaining books by this author I have not read yet. She, I think, is coming out with a new book this year, which I will definitely be reading because I read all of her books. I think I've been putting it off because I like the feeling of having some books by this author available in my backlist TBR, because I know that I generally enjoy everything she puts out. Her plots, her writing style is just so gripping, and I also really appreciate how distinct and different her stories are. I always feel like she's coming up with a new concept or idea, taking me to a new place, and I always just really enjoy the ride. This is like a futuristic vampire-esque story, and honestly I feel like I'm going to love it. This book is set in Mexico City, which is a sea of vampires, and first we're introduced to our main character Domingo, who is a trash collecting street kid just looking to survive, and one day he runs into a smart, cunning, beautiful vampire named Atoll, who is a jaded vampire on the run who also has Aztec blood. They begin to work together and team up, and I think they flee to all different sorts of places together as well. I feel like this is going to have great action and humor, fantastic characters. I already know I love this author. It's also not too long of a book, so I also feel like it'll be a perfect thing to marathon. Next book that's on my list is The Killing Moon by N.K. Jemisin. This is the first book to the Dream Blood series and the last remaining series I have that I have not read by this author. N.K. Jemisin is one of my favorite fantasy writers out there, and I've been like saving this because I know I'm going to love it, but it's finally time for me to finally pick it up. And this is set in an ancient city where peace is the only law. And to keep the peace, there are these individuals called gatherers who sort of stalk the rooftops of this city, collecting magic and feeling and emotion from the sleeping citizens, preventing uprisings, preventing like negative emotions. However, though, a conspiracy begins to bloom within the temple in the center of this city, and our main character, who actually is a gatherer, begins to sort of question everything that's going on around them. Obviously, written by N.K. Jemisin, I feel like this is going to have a gripping plot, really gripping and smart political landscape to explore. I just know this is going to be amazing, and I can't wait to read it. Next up, I have a sequel that just recently came out, and that is The Book That Broke the World by Mark Lawrence. This is a sequel to The Book That Wouldn't Burn that I read last summer and again really enjoyed. I'm just a sucker for giant, massive, ancient libraries that have a life and will of their own, and this is a series that definitely centers that. This book introduces us to our two main characters, a boy and a girl whose fates become very intertwined. The first first is a girl who lives in an area called the Dust, which is a very dangerous place outside of the main city of this world. After her community is attacked, she's forced to flee to the city center. There she becomes an apprentice to this, again, massive, giant, magical library. The other main character we follow is a boy, and he's been trapped within a room of a library his entire life, with his siblings living, learning, and existing there. They all sort of have kind of magical abilities as well. Again, things get complicated quickly. It's definitely a very windy and mysterious story with sort of a atmosphere that persists through the entire thing. I really enjoyed book one, and I'm curious to see where Mark Lawrence is going to take the story next. But just to live inside this library once again, I cannot wait. Speaking of some series I need to continue, I have a variety of next books in series I want to check out this summer. First is An Echo of Things to Come, which is book 2 to the Likeness trilogy. I read book 1, I want to say a month ago, and I did enjoy it. It didn't blow my mind, but I was overall impressed with the plotting and the characters, and I've heard that the series only gets better book over book over book. So I decided to give the second one a shot, even though the length of these are rather long. But this is a Roman-inspired story set in a world where once very magical and powerful individuals ruled the land, but there was a rebellion and uprising, killing off first the sort of godlike figures that once ruled the land for thousands of years, and also relegating the humans who have magical abilities to be like very much controlled by the new government that's in charge. In this story, we're first introduced to our main character who has hidden magic that he is trying to keep from the government, and he's also in school where we also meet his friends. From there, he sort of sets out on a quest and adventure to figure out his own powers, but the story itself very quickly balloons, and we're following and reading from a lot of different perspectives. At first, it feels like a classic chosen one story, but quickly you realize it's more of an ensemble situation. I found the concept of the magic in the world interesting. Aspects of the first one's world building were a little bit clunky, but I've heard it really improves within the next book. It definitely hits its stride halfway through, and I really was like pulled in by the story overall. I'm excited to see where the story takes us next. This author honestly is very good at writing an engrossing plot. While I've maybe not been super impressed by this author's writing style over the books I've read of his plotting is always something that I personally really enjoy. Next up, I have volume 2 of the Rhaenyra Revelations series by Michael J. Sullivan. It's been too long since I've read a Michael J. Sullivan book. I read The Legends of the First Empire all throughout last year, and I had a blast. I read the first book within the Rhaenyra Revelations, Theft of Swords, and liked it, didn't love it, but I've again heard that the series continues to improve book over book, and there's also just something about Michael J. Sullivan's writing style to me that I just find really comforting and homey. So even if I'm not like absolutely mind blown by the plot and story, I just like being in his books. I just find them like comforting. I hope that makes sense in some capacity. But this is a series centering our two main characters, Royce and Hadrian, BFFs and mercenaries for hire. They have a fun banter and relationship. They've worked with each other for a very long time, and they're quickly wrapped up in various conspiracies that kind of get them thrown headfirst in a lot of trouble. Book 1, they stole a sword and got framed for the murder of the king. Book 2, the politics are getting even more out of hand. Generally, I'm just hoping there's an overall improvement to the plotting. I like the characters. I feel like I could love them more. I know Michael J. Sullivan is capable of it because I've read other books of his that I've just adored. So I'm going to keep going. I also just appreciate that this is set in the same world as the Legends of the First Empire series. I think that's really fun. And there's also a new series he's been releasing that I want to read, so I just need to catch up, you know? Speaking of books I need to catch up on, I need to read the final 2 standalone novels by Joe Abercrombie so I can move on to his second trilogy within this world. I read Best Served Cold now quite a few months ago, and I liked it. It was truly so unbelievably brutal. Joe Abercrombie's grimdark worlds and characters that you love and hate and are horrified by, honestly, like page over page, just really capture my attention, but they're not necessarily the easiest reads. They are rather dark, but I have 2 remaining standalone novels that I want to read. First is The Heroes, and this follows the perspectives of different like warriors all leading to the same battle, and then I believe we watch this very battle unfold, giving us the opportunity to read this story from every side of one conflict. Definitely, I feel like this is going to be bloody, to say the least, but I think conceptually so interesting. And then we also have Red Country, which is a quest sort of story following a main character who ventures out into the vast countryside with some unlikely companions. Again, a great setup and concept. Love a quest story centering unlikely characters. I just feel like both of these could be great summer reads, and then I'll be able to read the second trilogy throughout the fall and winter. That is my hope. That is my dream. hopefully I'm able to accomplish it. Alrighty, we're in the home stretch. I only have 2 more books to talk about. The first is Five Broken Blades by May Corland. I have just been seeing this book everywhere, and it honestly sounds like so much fun. I want to say this book is like a little bit of a romantasy, a little bit of a competition, and the setup and synopsis of it just sounds like, honestly, just like very entertaining and a quick read. Basically, there is a king, and this king must die. He's corrupt. He's making the land inhabitable. He's giving all of the power and money to the nobles, leaving the average person to struggle to survive. Therefore, a variety of assassins have all been hired to kill off this king, and it is a competition to who can accomplish this fact first. And I believe we're reading from various perspectives of these different assassins. They all have different reasons and motivations, and one becoming an assassin and also taking up this job. It just sounds great, and this book too is also stunning. Let the best liar win. I love a competition book, you know, especially an assassin competition book. Say no more. And the last book that's on my TBR, I feel like some of you will be very excited about, because I'm finally getting back into Red Rising trilogy. I read Red Rising, I want to say last summer, and transparently, I was very underwhelmed by this sci-fi fantasy hybrid novel. So many people told me to just keep going. The writing style, the plotting, the characters really improved, supposedly, book over book over book, so I'm going to continue to give it a try. But this is a story set in a sci-fi world. It's very, very stratified and organized also by color. We're introduced to our main character Darrow, and he is a red, which is the lowest class. He and his people basically toil away, doing hard labor, barely given enough food, barely given enough materials to survive, and also relegated to a lot of infighting between the others. Darrow's world is turned upside down, and every aspect of his perspective on the world is shattered. And from there, we watch Darrow as he's transformed into the highest caste of individuals, which is a gold. And now Darrow enters this sort of school where he has to participate in this Roman-style competition to get like a really high-profile position within the government so he can enact his revenge. The first one was fine. Aspects of the plot were interesting, but the writing style, not for me. It was really repetitive. The female characters, I will not go on and on about, but they were not great. Basically, I just wasn't very impressed, but I trust you guys that it maybe gets better. So we will see. Alrighty guys, that is my summer TBR. Please let me know down below some books you hope to get to this summer, as I would love to know. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon with another one soon. Goodbye.